What's going on today, Taranis lovers? I made a video last night, made a couple small mistakes in it, so I deleted that video, and I'm going to put this video in its place. I've had quite a few questions on some of my different YouTube channels on the Taranis Plus. Before I even start this video up, I have to make perfectly clear to a lot of you guys that I'm running the older firmware, and some of the settings that I do on my Taranis are not going to be the same as your Taranis Plus if you're running the newer firmware. So I just definitely want to put that out there so you understand that completely. You know, it's some things will work and some things will not work. So next time you want to put a comment on any YouTube channel or any YouTube video that I put out that pertains to the Taranis, you definitely want to make sure and let me know if you're running the newer firmware or the older firmware, like the 2.019. I do not run any of the newer firmware, the 2.10 all the way up to 2.18. I don't run those. I only run 2.019 firmware. So some of your questions are just not going to get answered because I just don't know what firmware you're running. And that's the first thing I need to know, what you're running. So there were some questions on there. I'm going to help a couple. I'm going to help out the new guys here that have just gotten their Taranis here in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, or that are going to be getting their Taranis down the road here in the near future. So first thing we want to do is we want to go to the Open TX download page. The first thing you have to do on your radio before you do anything else, before you can start running your companion, because somebody asked me what software I'm using on my Taranis. I'm using if I'm running a 2.019 firmware, I have to run the 2.019 companion. I can't run the new companion with the old firmware. You're just looking for trouble, major trouble, if you do something like that. So you definitely want to run the same firmware and the same companion. Now, how do you figure that out? How do I figure out what firmware do I have on my radio? Well, it's really pretty simple. Now, I'm going to go into my companion, and we're going to do this on my companion. You're going to have to push the same buttons on your radio that I'm pushing on my companion because I can use the companion. Right now, my radio is not even hooked up to the computer. I don't even need the radio. We're going to go into the simulator here. Now, you're going to have to push the same buttons to find out what firmware you're using. You're going to do a long push on the menu, page 1 of 8, page over to page 4. I'm using OpenTX Taranis Plus 2.019 firmware. And now for the new guys that are most of the people in the last 4 or 5 months or whatever the case may be have just got their Taranis, or you're going to get your Taranis here in the near future, more than likely your Taranis is going to come with the new firmware already on it. I do not run that firmware. I'm sorry, I just don't. I run the 2.019. This is all the new firmware. This is all the new companions right here. More than likely your radio is going to come with the new 2.18 firmware on it, so you need to come here to the Open TX download page and download the 2.18 companion, which the finger is sitting on right now. Just click on it and save that to your desktop on your computer and then open it up. Now there's a number of reasons why I don't run the new firmware. The simple fact is the reason I bought the Taranis in the first place was so I could set up the Taranis the way I want to set it up. The new firmware, you have to set things up the way they want you to set things up, the way the people that are making the firmware. I don't want that. I want to be able to set up every nook and cranny of my Taranis the way I want it set up. That's all there is to that. So now on your when you get the new 2.18, which is probably going to be coming on your radio, that you have to come here and get the companion, the new companion. You just download this companion right here. More than likely, you're not going to need a sound pack, but in case you do, the sound pack for the 2.1 is right here. That's going to have all your soundtracks on it. Again, I do not use either one of these sound packs that you see in front of you. I generate all my own soundtracks. I come down just a little bit lower here, and I downloaded the OpenTX speaker that voice generates for the Taranis. I make all my own soundtracks too. That way there, I don't have a whole big conglomerate bunch of soundtracks on my SD card that I'm not using. I don't have to search through a 500 soundtracks to find one that I want to use. I make the soundtrack, I put it on my Taranis, and then I assign it to the switch that I made it for. Unfortunately, with the new firmware, you don't have that option to do that. Only the older firmware, the 2.019 or below, has that option. The newer firmware, you do not have that option. You have to use a sound pack, either this sound pack or the Amber sound pack. So, now since you know what firmware you have on, you have to come to the OpenTX download page and download whatever companion that matches your firmware. And then you download that. So we pretty much don't need this page anymore. So I can pretty much close out the... You definitely want to bookmark this on your computer so you can come back in here at any time very quickly and get information from the OpenTX download page. Or any kind of discussions or anything. It's all right here. You definitely want to do the OpenTX page and then come to the downloads and then later on. Okay, so we're done with that. So now I'm going to open up my simulator. I don't need this open right now. Now the first thing you have to do when you very first open up your companion for the very first time, this is a must. Do not forget to do this. This is the first thing that you do when you come in here. You come right here to this right here which says settings. It looks like a gear or a clog, whatever you want to call it. Open that up. Now I'm going to move this box over just a little bit so you can get it in the picture. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to come here to radio type. And if you have a Taranis Plus, this box right here must say Open TX for FreeSky Taranis Plus. It cannot say Open TX for FreeSky Taranis. If you try to put a Taranis firmware on a Taranis Plus radio, you are going to brick your radio up right off the start. So make sure if you have a Taranis Plus that this says Taranis Plus. If you have a Taranis, come down here and click on the Taranis and make sure it says for the Taranis. Make sure that that is done before you do any kind of changes or any kind of downloads or uploads in the companion. Go ahead and click on your LUA script box right here. Click on these two boxes right here and then say OK. So now you can come in and download or upload anything you want to your Taranis without it bricking up. Now let's say if you just got your radio in the mail today or yesterday and you know how to figure out what firmware is on the radio by paging over to page 4 of 8. And say your radio came with the 2.16 firmware on it, and you want to upgrade to the 2.18. All you have to do is come up here, click on this box right here, and a little box will pop up. And right now, this box says there's no updates available. But if you have on your radio, if your firmware is under 2.18, it will automatically put a box up there asking you if you want to download to the newest firmware. Of course, most of the people do want to download to the newest firmware. Plug your Taranis into the computer, turn on your Taranis, open up your companion, and then download that firmware to the newest 2.18 to your radio. Then you can come in here and start messing around with your companion. Now, if you don't have anything on your radio at this point in time, that's fine. If you're getting ready to put your first bird on, or if you already have something already on your bird right now, or I mean not on your bird, but on your Taranis radio, and you want to get it from the radio to the companion, you want to come up here and you want to click on this box right here. It says Read Models and Settings from the Radio. So that's going to pull off everything that's on your radio, and it's going to bring it up to the companion and put it in this EEPROM. This is an EEPROM right here. This whole box is an EEPROM, and there's 4 different things on my EEPROM. There's two birds, there's a 550, a 330, and there's 2 flight simulators on here. That's the EEPROM for what I have on my Taranis right now. Now, so that's what you want to do, is get all the information from the radio to the companion that you already have on there. Now you can open up. You definitely want to save that too. So come up to File, Open, hit Save, and then name that file. If you save it, then name it, and you put it in on your desktop or in your documents so you can always come back to it later on. You always have that backup file in case for some reason your Taranis loses all its information. You can always plug it right back into the companion and re-download everything just the way it was back into the Taranis. So now I can come into my 550. I can open up the 550 and I can start making changes to it. I can make changes on the settings. I can make changes on the curves. I can make changes on mixes, inputs, logical switches, special function switches, and to telemetry. Now you have to remember that I am using the older firmware, so this companion is going to look slightly different from the newer companion. It's going to look different and it's going to work a little different, but it's basically the same thing. It all does the same thing. Now, as you can see, again, we can come in here. I can go into my mixes on this and change my mixes here on the companion instead of doing it on my radio. The reason I don't do it on the radio, I don't make any changes on the radio itself. I don't go in and start pushing buttons and make changes on the radio for the simple fact it is extremely easy to get into that radio and get kind of messed up and make a mistake. And if you make that mistake, it could be catastrophic for when you're flying. And it's also a real pain in the ass once you make that mistake on the radio itself to go in and find where you made that mistake and fix it. Since I do everything on the companion, I can see it very well. Much bigger boxes. I know exactly if I want to put another mix on my aileron on channel 1, I can do that. If I want to put another mix on my channel 2 on my elevator, I can do that. That's just how this works. It's much easier to see it in the companion. And then, of course, you can come in to open up the simulator, which simulates you having the Taranis in your hand. The only difference here is I'm using a mouse to do everything with, and on the Taranis itself, you're pushing buttons. So this way here, I'm just much more careful. I'm double and triple checking everything, and I'm making sure every time that I do something or put something on a switch that it's working properly before I even put it on the radio. So, sorry guys, I had to stop the video. And the pizza man showed up. I had to run upstairs and get my pizza. Hang on, Maya. We'll get to the pizza in minutes. Let me finish this video. Okay, like I was saying before, I download everything from the companion to the radio. I make no changes on the radio itself. That way I can double check everything and make sure everything is working properly. We can go into maybe one setting on here and we'll set up one thing on here. So let's just do this. I'm going to go into the menu, or I'm going to go to the page, and I'm going to page over to channel monitor right here. And I'm going to set up my SH switch to not only reset the timer back to 10 minutes, back to 0. I'm also going to set it up so when I pull this switch, as you can see, I get a lot of action there on my channel monitor. I'm going to make sure my engine make it so my engines or my motors on my 550 start when I pull that switch. I no longer have to pull the sticks down into the center. Okay, it's pretty simple. I am going to have to make some mix. I'm going to have to put some mixes on the in the mixer itself. That's pretty simple. But I'm just going to show you kind of on how it works here. So what I've done here is what I want to see is I want to figure out how it works first before I make the mixes change, before I put the mixes in the mixer and all that stuff. So I want to put on hold here, hold here, hold here. And I want to bring both sticks into the center just like you would if you were going to start the motors on whatever quad or whatever hex or whatever you may be using. So now as you can see on channel 1 I have a -100, on channel 2 I have a -100, on channel 3 I have a -100, and on channel 4 I have a +100. So that's what it would look like if I brought both sticks down into the center to get my motors to start on my hex. So now I want to replicate that. So I can put that on a spring-loaded switch, which would be my toggle switch on the far right-hand corner up there. So when I pull the switch up here, it replicates everything that's happening right here. So let's turn these holds off. So now if I pull the switch down, it's going to reset my timer, and it's going to give me the same exact thing that just happened when I pulled the sticks down into the center, or down into the corners to start my motors. So that's what I want. That's what I wanted to do. That's how this simulator works here. It gives me that advantage to go in here and check out everything that's going on, so I can set this up. Now, for me to set that up, I did have to go into the mixes and put some mixes into the mixer. We can show you that real quick because we know this works now. We know that works properly because we're seeing this switch. When I pull this switch, we're seeing it do exactly the same thing as me pulling the sticks down into the center. So I don't need this anymore right now. So what we need to do is we need to go into the mix. And as you can see, I put a mix on channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and channel 4. And the first mix I'm going to put in there is going to be a max weight of -100. I'm going to put it on the switch, SH down. I'm going to come to the elevator. I'm going to put a max weight of -100. Switch, SH down. Same thing on the throttle right here. It's going to be a little different. I put a max weight of -125. Switch, SH down. max weight on the rudder here, plus 100, switch SH down. So now when I simulate that, as you can see, when I pull this switch, it does the same thing as me pulling the sticks down into the center. That's why I do everything on the companion before I put anything on the radio. That's just one I wanted to show you. I can show you one more here real quick. 55% throttle. Now, if you watch right here on channel 3, you can see I'm going to bring the channel, I'm going to bring it all the way down to minus 100. So now we know the throttle's all the way off. But as soon as I hit this switch, it's automatically going to go up to 55%. So right now, the throttle, even though I'm flying in the air right now, let's say I'm flying in the air right now, my throttle does absolutely nothing. I've taken the throttle completely out of the equation. The only thing you see working right there is the rudder. It's going to stay at 55% throttle. Now, why would I want a 55% throttle? Well, number one, I'm not running my engines that hard or my motors that hard. I'm saving battery. I'm getting more flight time because I'm running a 55% throttle. I can still fly around perfectly just as well as I could without it. I can give it forward stick, make it bank, make it go backwards, forwards. I can make it fly anywhere I want on the 55% throttle. Now, what's the 55% throttle give me? Now, I can take my bird, my 550 up to, let's say, 60 feet and flip on this switch. Now, if I do that, it's going to stay right there at 65 feet. It's not going to come down and it's not going to go up when I give it throttle. So any kind of bumping up and down on the throttle has been taken out of play. I'm going to get that very nice forward flying smooth picture all the time. Now on the other setup that I have is if I pull the 55, if I pull it down to the bottom position, my gimbal's automatically going to point down straight down to the ground. So that way there, I'm no longer playing with the throttle. I'm no longer playing with the gimbal. It's pointing straight down. I'm on the run, flying right over the top of something I want to see, videotaping it, and then once I get that videotaped, then I move on to my next subject and videotape it. That's the difference with the 55% throttle. But as you can see, as the throttle's moving all up and down through its whole throw here, it's not changing here on the channel monitor. So we know that that's working. That's working perfectly. So we know that that is going to work. Anytime before you throw that switch off mode, make sure you're above 55% or around 55% before you turn that switch off. It's just something you'll remember. Trust me, you won't do it but more than one time if you don't. But that's it. Everything's done on the companion and then put in on the radio. So that way there, if I make a mistake, I can see it right here in front of me. I'm not making a mistake on the radio and waiting for that mistake to come up and bite me in the ass later on down the road because I didn't even know that I made that mistake. So that's pretty much all I have for this video today, guys. It's going to help you do some setup. Remember to do your settings first. Get your companion upgraded to the most recent companion, so those bug fixes are all out of your radio and it's working at top-notch performance. And then come in here and start playing around with the companion and getting very used to it. It's just like using the radio in your hand. It's identical to that. It's no different. And I guarantee you, you're going to find you're going to learn way more about the Taranis, and you're going to get even more in depth on what it can actually do because now you're able to test what you're doing before you even put it on the radio. So there you go, guys. Everybody have a good day.